Is anybody out there? How you doing? Good? All right. Having a good Dreamforce? Awesome, awesome. My name is Greg Ruiz, and I joined Salesforce about 2 years ago, when I joined, I became the Lightning Components Developer Evangelist. And one of the very first things that I asked somebody, it's a very simple little thing, I thought. I said, hey, I've got this Lightning component, and I'm going to put it on a page. And when something changes in the record, I want the Lightning component to update. Anybody ever been there? Does it sound like, that's an easy thing, right? Seems like a very simple thing. So I tried it. Didn't work. So I went to one of my colleagues. I said, hey, I've got this component. I need it to update when this thing in the record changes. And he said, oh, that's easy. I said, oh, how do you do it? He said, refresh the page. I said, that's not the way we need it to work, right? So let's take a look at a quick demo of what I learned. So here I've got an app here, and everything on this page, actually this thing here, this thing here, this thing, all these things here on the right-hand side, these are all Lightning components. And again, what I said was, I've got something like that similar properties by price. Okay? That component is watching this record. It's basing its selection on the price of that record. So if that record changes, like, let's say we were going to change the price here. Now, this being San Francisco, we know that prices never go down, they go up. Right? So we're going to change this to 850,000. Now, when I hit save, what do we want to have happen over there in that component? That component needs to refresh, right? So let's see if that happens. And sure enough, it does. That's what I wanted to have happen way those many years ago. And that just happened with a single line of code, and that code was not Apex. What? Okay, so would you like to learn how to do that? Okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to go learn how to do that by talking about something called Lightning Data Service. Lightning Data Service is the magic that made that happen. Lightning Data Service is the answer to, why do I always have to write Apex when I'm building a Lightning component? A Lightning component that uses the Lightning Data Service does not need any Apex in order to do standard CRUD interactions. You know what CRUD is? Create, read, update, and delete. That's about the only 4 things that you need to do to a record, right? So those 4 things can be done using Lightning Data Service, and it's really easy. So let's talk about first, what does it mean? Why did we build Lightning Data Service? Well, imagine you've got 3 components on a page. All 3 of them are asking for the same information. Before Lightning Data Service, that meant that each component on the page was going to the server and saying, hey, I need that record. Then the next component went to the server and said, hey, I need that record. And the next component went to the server and said, hey, I need that record. By now the server is going, that must be a really popular record, because everybody's asking for it, which is silly, right? So Lightning Data Service actually stands as a gatekeeper between our components and the server. So now component 1 loads on the page, says, I need this record. So it runs off, grabs the information for that record. Now component number 2 says, hey, I need this record. I'll head off to the server, and Lightning Data Service says, yo, wait, stay right here. I've already got that. Here you go. And then the third component says, well, I need that, and I know, here. All right? So all 3 of those records, or all 3 of those components, are now using the same information. And what that means is if the information changes, if any one of those components changes that record, all the other components know about it, and they can take action as needed, right? So that's pretty cool. So how do you do it? Like I said, it's 1 line of code. Well, that's arguably more than a line. It's because I put in carriage returns. I'm a developer. Right? Okay, so let's talk about what does it mean to use Lightning Data Service in your components. Well, the first thing you need to know is the tag itself. The tag itself is called force record data. The force record data tag is actually Lightning Data Service. And it takes an Aura ID. An Aura ID in the Lightning component world is the way that we identify something so that we can talk to it from JavaScript. So this one is called property service. So if I ever wanted to talk to this, I would say, hey, property service, do something, right? Now, if you've done any Lightning component development, then you know that the place we store information, the place that we use as our value providers are called Aura attributes. One of the Aura attributes that we see up here is called record ID. And that actually corresponds to a property in the force record data tag. So that property in the force record data tag is saying, what record ID am I looking for? Now, in this particular case, it's whatever is stored in our attribute. Now, I'm going to show you some advanced uses of this in just a minute, but suffice it to say that when a record ID is assigned, so that when we know here's the record that we're asking about or looking for, then force record data tells Lightning Data Service, hey, I need the information, I need the fields, I need the data for this record, okay? So it goes off and it gets that information and it brings it back. And it puts it into the attribute defined as the target record. So it comes back and in this case, puts it all into an attribute called property. So here are all the information you need to know about this record. It's right there in that attribute. Now, that means I can access this. So in my code, in my component, I can actually call out to this. Curly bracket bang, that tells us we're doing an expression. We need to evaluate that. We need to go to our value provider, that's the V. The value provider named property, that's where we've stored all of our information. I want to look inside the fields that are collected there. I want to find a particular field, in this case price, and I want to get its value. Okay? Clear? All right. How many of you are lazy? It's okay, I'm raising my hand, right? As a developer, anybody developer here? That is the absolute definition of lazy, right? We want to get things done as fast as possible, and I don't know about you, but typing curly bracket bang v dot property dot fields dot price underscore underscore c dot value curly bracket, too much typing, right? I'm lazy. Therefore, we give you a different way to store that information as well, and that's called target fields. Target fields get stored in the exact same way as the target record does, except when we go to access the information, it's less typing. So we just simply say, what is the name of the value provider and what is the name of the field we're interested in? Done, okay? But whichever way that we are storing that information, we want to be able to react to changes in the data. So in the record updated attribute, we define what is the name of the JavaScript function that we want to fire in the case that our records get updated. Okay? So we go out and we can do literally anything based upon that data changing. Now, the question is, what are we watching though? So there's two different ways to tell the record what it needs to react to. So one is called, I'm going to start at the bottom, one is called layout type. Layout type equals full. That means I want you to go get every field that is expressed in the normal full record layout. Okay? What would be the opposite of full? Compact, right? So that says go get all the compact fields. Or maybe I'm not interested in all of them. Maybe I've got 37 fields on this record. And really all I'm interested in is 3 of them. So if I'm interested in only 3, I can actually put that in to the fields property and say, just watch the ID or get the name or get the price or the status or whatever it happens to be. So I, as the developer, am in control of what the Lightning Data Service is watching for me. And then finally, the coolest part, the mode. By default, if you do not express mode or do not say what kind of mode we are in a view mode. So we are watching but we're not reacting, or we're not doing anything to change the data. But if we set mode equals edit, it means that our component is allowed to update this record. Okay? So far, so good? All right, let's go put that into practice here, because we're going back to code. That is, if I can find my code. There we go. All right. So, I want to direct your attention to this card that's over here on the right-hand side. This is my broker card. I created this as a component so that, again, I'm lazy. Remember me? I'm lazy. I didn't want to have to go over here and mouse over the broker's information in order to see it. I wanted it to just always be visible for me on the page. Okay? So there it is. This component was created in the traditional way that we create components before Lightning Data Service. Let me show you that code. So here is the code for that component. Now, let me zoom in on the most important part. It's right here, the Aura handler. Now this handler is called init, and it is doing a function called doInit. In the doInit function, if we go and take a look at that, we can see that the doInit function right up here, this doInit function is calling out to the server, executing an Apex function called getBroker, bringing back the response, and putting it into my component. Okay, so far so good? All right, I'm going to prove to you that there's no magic here. This is a live coding demo, and I'm going to show you that just by commenting out this line of code where I'm enqueuing my action, I'm going to go ahead and save this and push it up to my server. By the way, you might notice I'm not using the developer console. That's because I'm in VS Code. I'm using Salesforce DX so that I can push directly out of VS Code to my org. All right, so it's actually done this. So I'm going to go back over to my browser. We're going to refresh our page. And in refreshing our page, we're going to see that our broker card is now completely broken. All right, so let's fix it. The first thing that you might notice is it says broker 4. Now, what I would like is for the record, for example, 121 Harbor Walk Drive, I would like it to say broker 4, 121 Harbor Walk Drive. Okay? So how do I do that? To do that, heading back over into code, we're going to go back to our component. And in our component, I'm going to go ahead and uncomment some code here for you. So there we go. So this is a force record data. I'm going to remove this last little bit. We'll put it back here in just a minute so as not to get confused. Let's zoom in here. All right, force record data. It says I have an Aura ID of property record. I have a record ID. That record ID is actually the record ID of the record that we are on. How do I know this? I know this because up in my component, we are using force has record ID. That is the magic that makes a Lightning component know what record page it is currently on. So it picks up that record ID. It then populates our attribute here, the attribute called record ID, which in turn, because this is now populated, means that this is also populated. And what that means is that now when that component loads on the page, it says, hey, I know what record I'm on. Let me run off to the server and get all of those fields, right? I told you that. Right? Right? Wrong, I lied. You see, because the component was just about to leave on his journey to get information from the server, and the page said, whoa, stay right here. I've already got that. Because of course the record loaded, right? We're on that record page. So obviously that data came down. Behind the scenes, all of our pages now are using Lightning Data Service. So the record page itself went off and it retrieved that data for me. And it brought it back. And it said, okay, well, where is the data? The component said, and the page said, well, here it is. And so the component said, thank you very much. And it put it into the target fields attribute defined here as property. Okay, so it's now in property. And which fields do we get? We got all of them. Why? Just because we can. So I said layout type full. Now, what does this mean? What this means is that now, if we zoom in here on our title for our card, we're using a Lightning component here, a base Lightning component called Lightning Card. And we're saying what we would like is the title to say broker 4, and then we want to go into that property attribute and we want to find out what is the value of name. With me so far? All right, so let's go ahead and save this then. We'll save it, we'll push it up to our server, Once it's done, we'll go have a look at it. We'll refresh our page, and we'll notice that now it says broker for 121 Harbor Walk Drive, which means we are now bound to that value. So that means if we go over here to our property name and we say instead of drive, we're just going to spell it DR, and we save, our component just updated. Ooh, cool. All right, let's take it to the next level, because now we know we're watching that record. But if we're watching that record, there is a field in that record that's very important to us, and that is the field for the broker. Now, that field, we were seeing a name. We were seeing a name down here, but we know that that name, we're not storing the entire broker details in there. That's just an ID for our broker. So if we know the broker's ID, maybe we can do some more magic, right? We're going to do that by going back over to our code. And in our code, this time, what we're going to do is I'm going to put back something that I deleted here a second ago. What I put back was record updated. I said, when this record is updated, what I would like you to do is to update the broker, or to call a function called update broker. Let's go take a look at that update broker function. In our controller, that update broker function says, what I would like to do is I'd like you to go out and find something called broker record. Now, broker record is actually another force record data that I'm uncommenting right here. But notice that this force record data is missing the most important thing in Lightning Data Service. What is it missing? The record ID, right? It doesn't have a record ID. What? What good is that? Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually dynamically assign that record ID. So I'm going to go back over, oops, not that way. Go back over here to my component, and I just lost it. There it is. All right, my component, I said. So I'm going to go over to my update broker function, and then that function is going to set the record ID to be equal to whatever the ID is that is stored in the property attribute as the broker ID. Okay? So once that is done, that means that we can tell force record data to go ahead and reload that record, which means now if we go ahead and we save everything and we push it back up to the server, that means that I now can go back over here, I can refresh my page, and I can see that we have our data back. Did you get that? I just went to the server and retrieved all of the record information for that broker record without writing Apex. Cool? Oh, that's amazing. Now, it gets even better because we can start doing some really cool things, like this component right here. I'm going to go ahead and click on the change of status for that record. Did you see what just happened here? Our record actually changed status. It changed status again. Now that was a component doing that. How do you think it did it? In exactly the same way as we just retrieved information, except we did it even easier. Let's go over and take a look. Got one more component, and that is here, that property status component. The entire magic of that property status component is right here, this one line of code. That one line of code says Lightning pick list path. This is one of the new base Lightning components in Winter 18. And this base Lightning component is simply saying, ooh, what record ID are we looking at? So it's asking what record ID, and then what's the pick list that I want? It's doing all of this without Apex. All I have to do is say, what's the record, what's the pick list, and the component itself goes out, figures out what the pick list is, and builds that path for me. Now finally, we've got an on-click, or on-select that is, handler, and it says handle the select. So let's go take a look at that in our controller. Here it is. So we'll step through this. The first thing we want to know is, we want to know, hey, which step did you click on? Which one of those things in the path did you click on? Get its value. Once we have its value, we're going to go ahead and go back into that property attribute. We're going to set status to be equal to whatever step it is that you just clicked on. And then the coolest part. How do we save? The way we save is by telling ourselves to go back out, find that force record data, and then it's simply save record. That's it. No apex was harmed in the updating of the statuses of our properties. Cool? All right, how wild can you get? In my final 30 seconds, this is how wild you can get. Back over there on that record page, we already saw the search updating over here, right? When the price changed. But through the magic of Lightning Data Service, I'm able to do some cool magic. We're on this page. In your traditional world, the only thing that you can update is that record, right? Duh. But what if you wanted to update a record you weren't even looking at? Well, through the magic of Lightning Data Service, that's exactly what this component does. You see, I can actually change. Let's see what we have. Oh, in fact, I've got two versions of the very same component doing different searches, one by price, one by bedrooms. Now, let's say, for example, these all have 3 bedrooms. Let's say, for example, we found out that when we were entering the data for 145 Commonwealth Avenue, it was actually only supposed to be 3 beds. We accidentally entered it as 4 bedrooms. So let's go ahead and edit that without even going to the record. Through the magic of force record data, or the Lightning Data Service, this custom dialog, this is a custom component, a Lightning component. It's picking up the values for that particular record. And then I'm going to go ahead and change that back to 3, which means that it's updated here. But guess what? Down here, there it is as well. It's now moved itself down there because that component is also watching for changes. Changes that mean no matter where we are on the page, if I'm referencing one record from 45 different components, all 45 are going to update. Cool? All right, I want to give you some homework because I'm out of time here. So I'm going to give you some homework. Go to Trailhead. In this particular this particular project called Build Flexible Visual Apps with Visual Force Pages and Lightning Components, right there, toward the bottom of my screen right there, create a similar properties Lightning component that will actually teach you how to build that very Lightning component that you just saw me do and how to have it react to changes to the main record, edit the remote records, and update all the other instances on the page. All right? So that's your homework. Thank you very much. If you have questions, I'll be hanging out down here. So again, thanks for coming. Have a happy Dreamforce.